Hey, my name is Eric, and today we're making a 3D wooden bear mount. Let's get to work. Okay, let's get started with a little bit of inspiration for this project. I saw these online and thought they would be really fun to try to recreate. They're essentially different planks of wood cut to different sizes and shapes, and when combined, they give you this really kind of unique 3D art piece. Now, it looks like most of these cuts here are pretty precise, and I'd imagine they're made with a CNC machine, which I don't have. So our number one objective here is to be able to try to recreate this with no CNC machine. It seems that in most of these designs, they're made with the same type of wood, except for our deer, which has a different color for the mounting piece, which I really like. I think I'm going to try to add a little bit more character to mine with some accent pieces and multiple wood types. I did a little bit more research and found this bear template on Amazon, which looks really cool. This is made by a company called Codify. I'll put a link in the description down below. I went ahead and ordered the bear, pieced it together, and it came out pretty neat. I like this very much, except for it's only 7 inches by 7 inches. My thought is I can then take this template and scale it about 2.5x and put it on boards. That's going to give me a final product that measures somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 inches by 18 inches. The next step is to take this template and figure out how to scale it accordingly. To do that, I took a picture of the template the way it was received. I then sent that over to the iPad, and using Procreate, I very slowly traced out this entire template. After a few minutes, I've got everything outlined. I can remove the background and then send this over to my computer. From there, I'll scale it up around 2.5x, print it out, and get to work. Let's give it a go. I ended up scaling the templates up 2.5 times their original size. Printed these out on the home computer, taped them back together, and then used a marker to trace in any of the lines that the tape covered. Then it's just a matter of cutting out the templates. This project had a total of 13, with each individually numbered just so we lose track of them. For this project, I'm going to use Peruvian Walnut for the bear, and then Zebra wood and Wenge for some accents. The back mounting plate's going to be made with maple. This project's going to start by cutting this board down to 18 inches, and then because this is rough-sawn lumber, I'll run them each through the planer to get a nice flat side. I can then raise the height of the blade to match the thickness of the board, and then rip these things to 1 3/4 inches. The final dimensions of these cuts ended up at 1 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch tall and 18 inches deep. I figured I could rip these things directly in half. Now when you do that, you're naturally going to lose some material to the width of the blade, and in this case that's 1/8 of an inch. That's going to leave me with 5/16 on the top, 5/16 on the bottom. Theoretically, I can adjust the width of my fence and then cut these exactly in half. Would you look at that? Then, after all this cutting is done, I can glue them back together. With the glue dried and the dust almost all settled, I walk away with 7 boards measuring around 18 by 18 inches and 5/16 of an inch thick. Perfect planks. And then it's a matter of doing a little hand sanding. Well, more than a little hand sanding, a lot of hand sanding to get these flat. The sanding's done, the sawdust is thick, and these planks are prepped. That's enough for tonight, but tomorrow we shape this beast. Okay, using a little bit of spray adhesive, I can secure the templates to the boards. And then cut them out with a jigsaw. For any fine cuts, I'll switch over to the square saw. Realize there's only 2 pieces of this template that need to be totally symmetrical, and they are not. So with that, I use a little double-sided tape to tape them together, and then it's over to the sanding equipment to get them nice and even. Now, if you're asking yourself why I didn't use a flush trim router to do this, I don't really know. Probably could have. Probably would have worked great. But this did the job. Okay, so the template accounts for those corrugated sheets, which are much thinner than my 5/16 inch planks, even when you scale this up. So I'll take my planks and widen these lines a bit. Now, I wasn't exactly sure how the jigsaw would do for these cuts, so I grabbed a couple scrap pieces, traced them out, and made a few test cuts. For fine joinery, probably not the tool you want to use, but for a bear that's going to hang on the wall, support no weight, and never be touched, this will work just fine. I tried to go really conservative on removing material, and that ended up working out really well. Most of these joints were really, really tight. For some of the smaller pieces, I moved over to the scroll saw, which in hindsight actually worked better than the jigsaw. If I were to do this again, this is the tool I'd use for all the cuts. It led to a lot of control and overall really tight fits. All right, since this piece is really all done by hand, there was some definite lopsidedness on this bear. And while no bear in the wild is perfect, this one had a little room for improvement. So I sketched out the areas that I thought were a little bit too lopsided, and then took it apart and then sanded those areas down. Just trying to make things a little bit more even. While I was at it, I spent some time smoothing out the boards, and then pretty aggressively attacked the fur, removing a lot of material, but I ultimately liked the way that this looked because it gave the fur a lot of depth. Then it was just more sanding. Okay, accent piece time. First, the nose. And for this, I'm going to use the Wenge, thinking that the darker nose will look really nice on the walnut colored bear. I'll drill 2 holes for the nostrils just to keep it nice and even, and then it's over the skill saw to cut it out. Spend a few minutes sanding it down, rounding off the edges, and making sure that the width was around my 5/16 of an inch. Then it was over to the eyes, something that I didn't really consider when working with my templates, but I love the way that they look on this bear. Figured for this, I'll just kind of eyeball it, pun partially intended. So I'll use this sheet of zebra wood to sketch out some eyes, find a shape that I like, and make 2 of them. I figured the ears were another great place to add an accent piece, so I'll sketch out the ear and transfer that over to the zebra wood. Then I'll cut these out and sand them down, just to round them off a little bit. Considering these pieces aren't going to support any sort of load, they'll never be touched, I figured CA glue would work perfect to hold them in place. Okay, the mounting plate. Let's knock this one out fast. I'm going to cut it, I'm going to plane it. I'm going to rip it to the same 1 3/4 inch strips. I'm going to glue it all back together, I'm going to clamp it down, and I'll wait for it to dry. Once dry, I'm going to come back, blow it off, and take it out of the clamps. And it's a little more sanding to get it nice and flat, a little tracing, and a little sawing. A little more sanding. Then it's over to the router table to give it a nice finished edge. Done. Finally, every woodworker's favorite part, the finish. For this, I'm going to use Tung oil, which has become my new favorite. Love the way it goes on, love the way it wipes off, and love the overall feel it gives to the piece, both in look and in texture. This gets applied very liberally with a foam tip brush. Give it 20-30 minutes or so to soak in, and then using a clean rag, you can wipe off any excess. This process gets repeated twice over 24 hours. This was my first time working with Peruvian Walnut, and I gotta tell you, I really liked it. Love the color, love the fact that it really didn't have any blemishes, no knots, cut really well, glued together really well. Definitely something I'd come back to again. All right, everything's done, and it is time for the final assembly. I'm going to use a little bit more CA glue to secure the first piece of the bear to the mounting plate. This is just temporary till I can throw in a few screws. Then, for the final time, I can send each of these pieces to their forever home. It's kind of hard to describe the feeling that comes with final assembly. Every cut, every sanding pass, every mistake for that matter, it all leads right here. Just days ago, this was nothing more than rough-sawn lumber sitting in the corner of a wood shop. Ordinary boards stacked there waiting for a purpose, and now it's this. It's a finished piece. It'll hang on the wall for years. A quiet reminder of time well spent, of patience, of effort turned into something lasting. That's the beauty of building by hand. This is my first time seeing the piece fully finished and in place, and I gotta tell you, I loved this project. This thing looks awesome. Very last thing to think about, how are we going to mount it? In this case, I'm going to use some French cleats. That's going to start by cutting a piece to size and then ripping it at 45 degrees right down the middle. In this system, that top piece is going to get glued right to the artwork. And the bottom piece is going to get secured directly to the wall. Makes it very easy to hang, very quick, and very secure. I'll finish it up by gluing a piece of the same size to the bottom to make sure it sits flush against the wall. Then it's on to one last finishing touch. We're done.